What a wonderful day it is. It's a chilly winter afternoon in Delhi, but it feels warm because there's excitement and there's enthusiasm. The entire staff of Lloyd, in fact, as well as the faculty from across the nation today who have gathered here to attend the valedictory ceremony of the AICTE sponsored faculty development program is keenly looking forward to the next 1 hour. As with us, we have the man himself, with the consent of whom we pharmacy teachers exist, with the consent of whom, with the approval of whose stamp our institutes exist, and because of whom the quality of pharmacy education is creating new benchmarks every moment. We are most honored to welcome with us Dr. B. Suresh, President, Pharmacy Council of India, and Pro-Chancellor, JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, Mysuru. We have been eagerly anticipating this day, and there has been a buzz since a week when it was announced that you would be here with us, sir. Very, very warm welcome to you. The president of Lloyd Group of Institutions, Mr. Manohar Thairani, who's with us in this meeting, would not like to miss this opportunity to welcome sir for this session. So over to you, President, sir.
Thank you. Respected Dr. B. Suresh, sir, President of Pharmacy Council of India, faculty participants, and our core team, ably led by Dr. Vandana. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. We are extremely honored today by the gracious presence of Dr. B. Suresh, sir, on virtual platform of Lloyd, and extremely humbled that sir accepted our invite for the valedictory address. Sir, your presence is a great source of inspiration to all of us, and your words of wisdom will motivate the participants immensely. A very, very warm welcome to you, sir. Hope that everyone is safe and taking care against the coronavirus. And congratulations to all pharmacists present in this forum, especially the leadership in pharmacy profession, ably led by Dr. Suresh, sir, for producing scientists who could develop a vaccine under tough circumstances and save humanity. Today happens to be the blessed day of launching the vaccine in India. Sir, I'd like just to brief your college. We started in 2004 with an academic vision to offer higher education, and have slowly evolved our vision to skill the students with the objective to increase skills and employability. Each program we initiated at Lloyd is done with the objective to promote practical skills and job potential. This includes not only the number of placements, but also the quality of pharma jobs the students get. And this has been possible by the blessings of DCGI, under whose guidance each year a grand job fest is organized at our campus in the last 5 years, with participation of more than 50 pharma companies and 1,500 plus students from colleges all across India, leading to a final closure of about 20 to 25% placement opportunities. Sir, we have recently introduced UGC approved certificate course in pharmacy law, which gives a complete overview of patent and regulatory framework in India. This will equip our pharmacy students with skills beyond curriculum and increase employability, sir. In fact, to apprise you, sir, we encourage a different kind of faculty development program here at Lloyd. We promote our faculty to undertake trainings in industries for 2 to 4 weeks so that their practical skills and understanding are polished and their teaching improves. Sir, our latest development has been in the field of EdTech, and we are in the process of developing a virtual learning and skilling platform, and which will give a boost to education pharmacy. Sir, I once again humbly express my gratitude for your gracious presence at our online platform and hope to host you in person very soon at our campus. Thank you very much, sir.
So much would be said about Dr. Suresh in the following 3 minutes that I have before I hand over the charge to him. But I would like to express that if there's one person I look up to in the entire academic fraternity of pharmacy, then he would top the list. I believe in the expression that what we all want is to live with the truest, highest expression of ourselves, in the words of Oprah Winfrey also. So I haven't worked with Sir ever, but whatever little I have seen or witnessed through remote only, the activities and the strategies that Sir engages in to achieve the same echoes this sentiment. So you have lived the truest, highest expression of yourself. A very, very brief detail about this, sir, because if I go on, then it's going to take an entire half an hour to introduce Dr. Suresh here. For the past 35 years, sir has been actively and passionately involved in uplifting the standards of pharmacy education and profession in India. Though being selected in dentistry in 1976 during the emergency in India, Sir chose pharmacy over dentistry because it was destined that he lead us. He set up the grandest vision for himself and for the pharma profession and is all over to achieve it, not only for himself, but all of us pharmacy co-professionals as well. Being elected and then re-elected for 4 consecutive terms, starting 2003 to the last one in 2018, and still leading PCI as the president has been no less achievement. Sir is also the chairman. He's been the chairman of the scientific body of the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, a delegate member of the United States Pharmacopoeia Convention, a part of ACPE International Services Commission, USA, and an executive member of Commonwealth Pharmaceutical Association. Sir had pioneered the cause of promoting pharmacy practice concept in India, introduced PharmD through the PCI for all of us on the lines of the United States. He's the founding Vice Chancellor of JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research at Mysuru, and he's broken all records by getting this university in the top 500 universities of the world by the Times Higher Education ranking. Several papers to his credit, national, international, and several international collaborations, a recipient of many awards, laurels, recognitions, and most importantly, a recipient of affection of so many pharma professionals and a recipient of respect of so many pharmacy students, sir, that you have created under your guidance. Presenting to you, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor B. Suresh for the next 45 minutes. Sir, over to you.
A very good afternoon to all. Respected President Sri Manohar Tahiriani, Vandana Sethi, and all my teacher colleagues who are there on this faculty development program. At the outset, very, very happy and prosperous New Year to you all. This is my first talk I am giving out of my own system to the pharmacy fraternity in the new year. So I'll be talking to you a bit of new year and what challenges which are ahead of us and what we need to address that. Again, two things motivated me to accept this talk and reach out to all of you and also talk. One was that it was an opportunity to address all of you in the new year, all the young teachers who are looking for bringing about a change in this education system, in the pharmacy field, and also grooming new generation of leaders that will come out. The second, of course, definitely is Dr. Vandana Sethi. As she said, though we have not interacted on various platforms, but definitely I have been watching her and seeing her very active role she plays in various professional organizations and how she tries to move forward and do it. And the way she approached openly, seeking an what you call as my involvement in this with FDP directly and asking was very, very impressive and important to me, because such is the courage which is required. Like, people always think, oh, if I ask whether he will accept or not, let me try to somebody, let me try this, let me try that. But I am one who is accessible to all. So I think I was very happy that she reached out And I told her, let me check my time, and if it suits, definitely I will join in. And here I am with you this afternoon. I thought instead of speaking about pharmacy to you this afternoon, I'll speak a bit of more about leadership and change. I think that is very important at this moment, because see what happens is the pharmacy education or even the higher education as such has undergone two shocks that has happened in the last say 8-9 months, which has gone through. The first shock was, of course, the national education policy that was put out, telling that you all have to follow national education policy. It's going to come in. So everybody is scrambling whether it is going to be impacting us, whether pharmacy education will be a part of the change, whether it is affecting only university, how it is going to be. That was there. And of course, there was a lot of resistance also for that. And people started telling, oh, it is not implementable, not doable. The second challenge or change came before the education sector was the corona pandemic, where we could not resist or challenge it. We just accepted it and adapted and move on. So that means when the situation is forced on us, we are ready to accept and change and move forward was what was established. In these two challenges, the education segment itself is going to change in the coming couple of years. And it is good that we as teachers, we as faculty are prepared to understand and move forward. So for that purposes, I'll be touching on this bordering on education policy a bit, but not talking too much about it. At the same time, I will not be speaking about for how it is going to impact pharmacy and all, but more try to give you the tools for you to think how you should adapt for the change when it comes, whether it is because of corona or whether it's because of the education policy. So let me pull up the slides for you, move forward. The theme which I have sort of kept for this talk for you all is the new year, the new vision, and the way forward. So that's what is what I am looking at trying to share to you. Why it is important to have a new vision in this year is you all, as I told you, is that the challenge that is before us, and we have to have a vision adapting to that and move forward. So on these lines, let me move on. As was emphasized by, as also was mentioned by Sri Manohar Tahiryani ji, today is a very special day. Because this special day is because today the country has its vaccine, and the vaccine program has been launched by no other person other than the Honorable Prime Minister of India. I don't remember in the history of India as a young person who has gone through quite a bit, seeing different things happening. I've never seen a prime minister getting involved at a launch of a healthcare system across the country, particularly this. So I think this is definitely shows the importance that this launch of vaccination is for every one of us. So with this, let me show you that this morning we had the launch of vaccine at our hospital. That's what I was telling to Dr. Vandana. Just remind me, because I may get absorbed in the whole process and I should not lose track of time. So I told her to remind me, and she called me up at 1:45 and reminded me that I should not miss out coming on board. So I quickly rushed back from the hospital side. As you can see, we were the one of the two sites in Mysore city, or for the whole district of Mysore, where the vaccination was commenced after the PM inaugurated it in the morning at 10:30. And two sites were, of course, our JSS Medical College and Hospital, and the other site was the Mysore Medical College and Hospital. And what we could see in the whole process was that, you know, how the whole nation was awaiting for this this change to come and this vaccine to come, and how important it is going to be to all of us in bringing about the normality in our lives which we are looking at. And so that's what I said. The wait is over. The vaccine is here. Now our journey continues. So we should not keep on thinking about, oh, whether it will be safe for us. Can I go back to campus? Should I do this? Why not we continue with the online system of education for some more time? So these are the things both teachers and the students have in mind, because we have got adapted to certain way of life. And we feel comfortable telling, oh, we have been doing all this along now for the last 7-8 months. So what's the rush? We can do it another 2-3 months and then go. But then there is no end to it. I would just like to say, like, our school, our college opened, pharmacy college as well as our university, everything. As soon as the lockdown was over, May 6th, our colleges opened and all our faculty were on board. So though they were given the choice of they can come on alternate days and all those things, we were talking to them as per thing, but they were volunteering and telling it's good for us to be on campus rather than being at home. At least we are occupied and we can do. And this resulted in a lot of productivity on campus. So if there was any hesitation, then this would have not happened. See, we were the site of clinical trials for vaccines. We were a site for a lot of development of new technologies that happened during this period. And today we are in the process of even launching the vaccine across to our region, which we are in. So this is because the staff actively got engaged in being a part of the change around us and not trying to wait for the change to happen and then move to the campuses. So they were said, okay, let's bring about the change in the region, and we all were very active. So it's very important that the faculty who have undergone this training in these 2 weeks, which you have been going through, you might have learned so many things, maybe about soft skills, maybe about subject domain, maybe about pedagogy, and all these things you would have gained. Now, if you go and say that I'm going to go and wait for my campus, let the principal or the dean decide how to do it, then I will contribute, then it is not going to happen. So it's up to you to bring about the change which you want to see in your own institution. Now, again, the question comes back is, why is change important? What will happen if change was not there? Let us say we were just we are feeling that, okay, the life is going on. Why not we continue with the same way of life which we have been leading? If this is the way we have been sort of thinking, then our whole civilization would have not changed. So, for example, for any civilization, organization, and all forms of life to survive and carry for its legacy, we have to change. Without change, we will not be where we are. Let us say, if we were still in the Stone Age and there were no discovery of fire or the machine or the technology that came along with that, imagine where we would be living in the present. So definitely there is a need for change. And I just tried to explain that here there are the 4 types of change that can happen, and perhaps it will help you to learn from this and implement it at your institution level. First one is what we call as a life cycle change theory. Here what happens is a cycle we go through. You start something, you grow with that, you harvest, and then you close the project. It is like doing a research project under a scheme. You write a project, you implement the project, you submit your report, and then the project gets over. But institutions cannot function like that. It's not something to begin and end. It has to continue. The second change theory that can happen is what we call as a teleological change theory. That is a repetitive sequence take place. There is a goal formulation, there is an implementation, there is evaluation, there is modification of goals based on the journey which we go through. And again, we relearn and again we keep running. There is a continuative and repetitive process that takes place. Third is a dialectic change theory. That is, we call it as the forming a thesis and an antithesis on a particular issue. Now, let us say national education policy. You can have a view on, say, yes, national education policy is going to be beneficial. You can have a view that, no, I am going to resist it. I'll go to court and fight it out. So what will happen is when the decision comes, you ultimately end up either accepting and yielding to the original synthesis and keep moving forward if it is not favorable to you. And even if it is an antithesis for you, that is the decision is in favor of you and not the system, then the system is going to fight back because they are not going to accept one person's change resistance and leave it at that. And last one is, let us say the last one is the evolution change theory. In this, what happens is there is a continuous cycle of variation, selection, and retention. This is the Darwin's theory again, that depending upon the resources available, competition will be there, and only the best and better will survive. That is what we are looking at. This evolution change theory and teleological change theory is very important for us. Why? Because educational institution is a continuous process. So there is no question of termination there. So we have to continue, we have to realign and move forward. The second, evolution change theory is very important because, as you know, what was 100 institutions of pharmacy in our country became 500, then they became 1,000. Now we have got 3,000 pharmacy institutions. Now let me talk about UP alone. UP alone has got 700, 800 pharmacy institutions. Under this particular situation, unless you are not going to evolve and change and move on, you will, what the same scarce resource that is available around there, you will be competing and you may lose the race in the process. So it's very important to have a change in your organization, in your own level. Let us say, even as a teacher, you want to evolve, then you have to bring a change in you. What is important for you to move forward in life? Is the geographical location where you stay in your house and then proximity to the college is more important? Or your career and the opportunity that is going to be available to you is more important? What is your vision goal for you? And for that, if there is a change required, you have to think about it and move forward. I think this is very, very important. If you are going to be in a comfort zone thinking, I'm happy here, let the life go on. So this will not go on forever. And at one time, it will create a detrimental effect on you. And you will say, why did I resist and stay back here? So it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is one that is most adaptable to change will survive. This was told by Charles Darwin. So we have to see there is a change happening now in the country, globally, nationally, regionally, it is happening. How we can adapt and move on is something which I would like to leave a message to all of you. Now, let us say what happened to those organizations which resisted change. Here, I have given you some industry examples. I can give even institutional examples for that. Let us say now Eastman Kodak was the leader for photography for several years. Because they could not shift themselves into digital platform and bring out digital cameras, they lost out into the market. And the Motorola also similarly was outmaneuvered by smartphones. Yahoo went into the competition and lost it. Now you look at the situation even in the education sector, you will see there is a strong movement of students taking place. Now they are going to the process of selection. It means it was no longer what is available to them near their house or where the fees is low, because they know these two things are going to affect their future career. So they have started looking where is this institution where they want to study is positioned in the NIRF ranking. Now that is one of the determining factor for every student to make a decision today where he has to study. If at all he has to study, he looks at the 5 institutions in a region and see which has got a better position, and he moves towards that. So this is what we call as the natural selection process, which even the student is making now, so that he knows that he has to survive in this world. And unless he does not choose the right institution to learn, he is going to lose the opportunities for his personal growth. So it is greatness is not in where we stand, but in what we are, what direction we are moving. We must sail sometimes with the wind and sometimes against it, but we should sail. That is definite. Not drift or lie at the anchor. This is again something, the change is very important. Sometimes you may go with the change in the sense you go along with what is a policy, or sometimes you may resist a policy, but something should happen. You should not wait for things to happen. And this is what I would like to emphasize. So that is why I wanted to, first I told you why change is required and what types of changes are there. And I am telling you also what will happen if institutions or the individuals did not change. I can give one glaring example, like even Banaras Hindu University, which was known for its own strengths. And as an engineering college, it could not do well with the competition around the IITs and other things coming. So immediately it rebranded itself into IIT and started functioning. And again, it got back its strength. So this is the type of change that is happening across the nation. So I think institutions and individuals need to look focused on this. Now, again, another argument I put up to you is what will happen if I don't change or if we don't change? You may say, okay, what does it matter? Whatever I am going to teach, my salary is going to be same. Okay, I am going to work more hard or prepare everything. Is the organization going to recognize me? If this is the question which is running to you, let me give you an example of a car. Let us say, what happens if you don't change the car, oil in your car? It leads to poor engine performance. It leads to overheating. It leads to complete engine failure. and avoided vehicle warranty. In the sense, if there is an engine failure and the mistake has been on your part that you have not changed the oil, even the insurance company will not cover your insurance, because they say that you have neglected the the guidelines given by us. So how can you be able to carry forward this type of effort? So this will be the challenge which you are having. And same thing happens even at institutions and the individual levels. If you are not responding to change, you will have poor academic performance happening. Even in your own institution, you will find the results going down, the publications going down, students are not coming in. There will be a lot of upsets. There will be approvals being withdrawn from the institution, accreditations going down. Then finally, institutions shut down. Now, if institutions are going to shut down, again, who is the worst affected? Definitely the students and the teachers. What the organization will do is they will change the pharmacy college into a hotel management college or a public school or something, and they'll continue because they have the infrastructure. They'll adapt the infrastructure to move on. But the institution or the organization suffers because we are not willing to change. I think this is something we should think. How do I change? It can be through the quality which you want to bring in, by the infrastructure you want to give in, how proactive you are in bringing about the in the education delivery. All these changes are possible by you to carry forward. Now, why do people resist change? One is always the fear of unknown. That is, okay, what if I do this, whether my management will support me or not. So I think we have to make it very clear to the management when you are talking, okay, we are bringing about this change. Now, if that is the case, what type of support management is going to give? Is the management committed to keep the welfare of the staff as its top priority? I think this type of dialogue is required. And the management also has to give a lot of trust to the faculty. Don't worry, whatever be the circumstances, we will try to work with you and we'll try to help you. Don't worry about the distress period, we are supporting you. And this is one of the things we have to move forward. Similarly, poor communication, whether it is a student, teacher, management, this all has to be, even the regulatory bodies like Pharmacy Council or others. If there's a poor communication, then there is again a challenge before us. And one thing is, again, we say, no, okay, let what is going on, let it happen. Now, let us say if PCI brings out a new syllabus, we want to say, why do we need to change? We just changed 2 years ago. Again, I have to bring a new syllabus, new curriculum, and a new process has to go through. This type of perspectives are there. And for that, again, we have to understand why the change is important. Then leadership and competency. Quite often what we have felt is that the leadership does not go down to the individual level, at the student level and teacher level, and emphasize that that it is very important to bring about the change which you are talking. Otherwise, we'll be losing the position. I think then everyone would participate. Finally, the confidence building measures are very important. Now, I'll just give another example. We spoke about Corona, and now I'm speaking about NEP. Now, what does NEP say? NEP says that all institutions shall become multidisciplinary, and they should organically evolve into clusters, offering seamlessly the courses in an integrated manner. And they say there should be minimum 3,000 students in a campus, and they should be able to become the degree awarding capacity would be given to the institutions. If they do not conform to the standards, they will be merged with the universities and they will become a part of the university structure. So this is what the NEP envisages. So in that perspective, how pharmacy institutions are going to develop. Now, if a pharmacy college has to have 3,000 students, so what type of new programs we have to bring into the campus? What type of other structures has to be built in? Whether the regulations of the Pharmacy Council permit us to bring the other programs in the same campus. So these are challenges which both of us, you and us, have to address and see how we can bring about a change that is required, aligning with the national education policy. At the same time, it does not affect the interests of the pharmacy education and the profession. Now, let us look at the new year and the new vision which I spoke about. We are welcoming 2021 amidst fear and frustration. Because why? Because the last 6-8 months has been challenging for all of us, individuals, organizations, nations, and economy is all set to dip. That means there's not going to be much money available for the people to invest or buy things which are very expensive. So this is going to be a challenge. If there is no buying capacity, it definitely affects the education also, because the students and parents would start looking at where they can get an affordable education. So when they start looking at affordable education, compromises will start. Again, it is not good for us, and we have to see how we can tide over the next 2-3 years, where we are able to take good students also to come to us, but at the same time, the education is not compromised. And particularly the healthcare segment and the education segment are set to change, and our profile will change, our admission profile, and our technological capabilities, all these are going to change, and we have to do it. Particularly the engineering field had a very big beating this year. So what I am afraid is, again, we'll have number of new applications looking for start pharmacy colleges. That means new applications means, again, there is a compromise in quality, and the same resource is being utilized. Now, how do we address these issues? So what I am trying to tell is, it's time to adapt, it is time to innovate, it is time to engage, it is time to collaborate, and it is time to strengthen your resources, and it's time to have a focused growth to enhance quality. I think this is where I would like to emphasize here, that all of you will have to work together to look at quality as one of the criteria for you to have a focused growth. If you are looking at compromising the quality for whatever be the reason, then your growth will ultimately become affected. The successful formula always is good leadership. We have to have good faculty, good students, worthy partners and collaborators. Like, when you're even collaborating with an industry, it's good to have a big industry working with you rather than looking at a small industry where it may not necessarily give the impact which is required for your institution. And then the contemporary curriculum, you have to, besides the regulatory requirements which the curriculum gives, but you have to look out, like just now the president mentioned, that they are offering additionally the diploma courses in intellectual property and other things. So this type of value addition type of programs do make a difference to the students in their career progression. And lastly, the industry engagement. That is, you have to learn to work closely with the industry. If you do not bring about this, then the formula which we are looking at for a new vision may not necessarily happen across the country. So we are encouraging institutions to continue to move towards this direction. And for that, the higher education should bring about a planned change. We are aware at the council that higher education has got what we call as a resistance to change culture is always existing there. They always would like to resist anything you want to bring new. First of all, there is a resistance, and followed by court cases that are required. So it is very important to bring about collegiality, have dialogue, have consensus, and emphasis on educative excellence, which is required, and then respect the academic tradition also, and try to bring in the change which you are required. Change should be evolutionary. We should give time. Now we have brought the Education Regulation 2020 for the diploma course in pharmacy. So we know that it is going to be implemented this year, and we'll be rolling out the syllabus for that. We know there are going to be newer challenges for institutions to equip themselves to move forward, but it is very important to evolve and move forward, and that's the only way we are going to survive. And make the structure much simpler. Don't make complex structures in the organization where students, teachers, management do not interact so frequently. It's very important they come together and interact, and a planned change is what is required to move forward. Now, I'm just emphasizing here 3 types of governance that happens in the institutions. One is like, there is a governance, faculty, and leadership. All are closely interacting. That means governance means, the management. We have the president of the Lloyd Group of Institutions sitting there. We have the leadership. Maybe Dr. Vandana Sethi is sitting as leader, and then the faculty of that institution. Now, all 3 should interact well and communicate with each other the emphasis that is required. The other type of governance is like, the management directly speaks to the faculty, this is what it is done, or the leadership directly feel, and the leadership and governance are not interacting with each other. So that means there is always a gap in communication. The third type of governance challenge which you have is the management speaks about it. The management speaks about the governance to the principal or to the leader. The leader speaks about to the faculty. But in the transmission, what will happen? There will be something lost and something added. and ultimately the faculty may be ending up getting a information that is not 100% accurate, and as well as which does not clarify the concerns which the individual may have. So it is very good to have a governance structure in your institution to manage all these things together. You may be wondering why this is being talked to you as a young teacher. How does it relate to the faculty development program? What I am trying to emphasize is that if you have to evolve, you have to have certain qualities to grow, not only academically, but even as a person, as an individual, and achieve this growth. And for that, what is very important is a good leadership team and governance in an organization. If the success has to be there, then you have to have that leadership at the organization. Now look at this simple picture here. There is a group of Pride of Lions which are walking on the middle of the road, and there is a series of vehicles behind standing up in a queue. Now, what is the significance I am seeing here? That nobody is sitting in the cars have the courage to come out and chase the lions away. They are waiting for the lions to go away, so they will go. And even the lion also knows that unless he moves away from the road which he is blocking, nobody is going to going to be a challenge for him. So he knows that with that confidence. So that is why he is working, and that's what the leader is all about. The leader is the one who has the courage, who has the vision that, okay, I can take my team forward and nobody dare touch me. Or if you do not have the courage, or you do not want to be a leader, then you can become one of the persons sitting in the car waiting for the leaders to move away, and then you can go in your path and move forward. So it's very important for an institution to grow, to have a strong leadership. There should be a right team. There should be a great vision. There should be realistic goals and a doable plan. Put all this together, and I'm sure 2021 is going to be yours. Another thing again is, like, if you want to have a fast growing organization, let us say if Lloyd Institution wants to explore and move forward and come out as the top institution in the region where you are, in the UP or wherever it is, then with that type of fast car or fast approach you are having, you have to have a fast driver or a leader to lead it also. See, it very important is you may have a sports car, but if you have a taxi driver to run the sports car, then the sports car is going to break down, because at the source speed, the car will not perform and create problem. Similarly, if you take a sports car driver and put him as a taxi driver, the taxi will break down, because the speed with which he will handle it, all spares will come out. So it's very important that the leader which you're choosing and the engine which he is going to drive has to have the matching capabilities. Otherwise, you will just collapse on the way. Either the institution or the leader will collapse in the process. So it is very important to build that type of relationship, build a good engine, build a good driver. And that's what we are trying to make you, is create a good driver, create a capable driver, a race car driver who can go and make their institutions to perform like that, or go to move on to the institutions which are looking for such capable leaders to come in and help them move forward. And academic leadership has got 5 qualities basically. You should have excellent communication skills. You have to have domain knowledge, proactivity, and learn to take risks. See, there is no question of just waiting. Let the good time come, then I will change. Let everyone start, then I will change. And then this good time is not going to come to you so easily. So you go on waiting throughout your life for that. And the resilience is one thing very important. Okay, you have failed once. You wrote a project to the DST. You wrote a project to AICT. You didn't get it. Now, okay, you accepted that, oh, I don't want to do it. What can I gain? I'm not going to be able to do anything. So let me wait. No, you have to get back and write again and again. And then sure, you'll succeed. And then that's where the whole success story starts and moving forward. And lastly, you have to have the passion in what you want to do. See, like if I have come here to talk to you, I could have just come and told, okay, hello, how are you? Wish you all the good, best. And I understand that the institution is doing well, you are all doing well, and gone. But I thought, if I am spending 40 minutes with you or 45 minutes with you, let me give you something of value. That is the passion which I am trying to share with you. That is, can I make an influence? Can I try to convince my colleagues? Can I motivate them? Can I inspire them to bring about the change which we are looking at in the pharmacy education? So that is very important. Don't do anything without passion in it. So I think you should try to bring whatever you're doing, do with some passion in doing it. Lastly, I would like to add, this is my last slide. Any organization is a shadow of its leader. Whether if it is talk about Microsoft, then you look at Bill Gates as the leader. If you look at Google, you are looking at, again, Satya Nadella and that type of leaders around there. If you're looking at Amazon, if it is Jeff Bezos who is talking about, you are looking at the latest billionaire, number one billionaire in the world is Elon Musk, who is talking of going to Mars. Can you imagine sitting a person who is selling his idea that I want to take you all to Mars, and people are believing in him and investing in him, and he's a billionaire. So that must be something in him which is making people to believe that, yes, this is going to bring about a change. And as you know, Tesla is going to come to India as a vehicle, and already there's a big hype about it. So when you talk of Tesla coming to India with a vehicle about 55 lakhs to 60 lakhs worth vehicle being sold in India, and if Elon Musk is investing that much money in India, he knows that there is a market existing, and particularly even during the pandemic time, he knows people will be willing to invest that type of money and bring in. So the example which I am trying to tell is there's always value for good education. If you are going to deliver the good education, I'm sure student would spend any amount of money to get that good education from you, because he knows that you are talking about his future, you are talking about the future itself, and you are talking about the change which you want to bring about the future. And with this note, I would like to thank you all for inviting me and sharing some of my thoughts in the this afternoon. I wish all my colleagues, teachers who are there, young teachers, be inspired, be motivated, be passionate, drive the change around you. I think it will happen. Don't wait for change to lead it to you. Like if I want to do something at the council, or I want to do professionally something, I get a team of people who believe in me, and we all work as a team and move forward. I think that's what is required by all of you. Be a leader, be a change maker, be the change itself yourself, and succeed in your life. And I wish you all a very, very happy new year. With this new vision, I'm sure you are going to bring a paradigm shift in the pharmacy education in the country. Thank you once again, and my best wishes to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been an incredible 30 minutes of session with you. Very remarkable session, I would say. Probably the one of the best that I've heard. In fact, I had some questions penned down before the session started. Before we took questions from our audience here, the various faculty that we have, I had certain questions written. And the first one, which you've already answered during your session, said that what exactly does PCI expect from colleges and from teachers other than the mandatory norms? And I think you summed it all together in your session and beautifully described leadership process coming out of the comfort zone. And I myself believe that with comfort comes complaints. And we feel that we are entitled to certain comforts of the world, maybe as personally as well as professionally, which we don't really are entitled to. We are born in good families, and probably that's what has given us the privileges that we have today. Once we get comfortable in the institutes, we stop working towards more betterment. So I think beautifully described by you, and how you took it up to communication from a leader as well. So governance and leadership have to collectively engage with the faculty, and not via governance, leadership, and faculty. So the message is not lost in between. Also, I think the image that you showed of the lion walking on the road and the cars, the drivers following, and none of the driver had the courage to come out of the car and get ahead of the lion, and the lion is walking courageously, fearlessly. I think that is going to be imbibed in our minds for a very, very long time. So the first question has already been answered during your session. With your permission, if I could take up a couple of more questions, sir.
Yeah, I'm fine, no problem.
So, sir, it is about the students that we somewhere feel that, the students these days are distracted. the students are not focused. So you've spoken about the faculty. So some of the faculty wanted to know that how can we engage the students in such a way that we can keep their focus on the work, which includes bachelor students or even students in their research, or during their research, how to prevent them from being distracted, how to get them focused on the subject, since you've had a rich experience with so many students also through so many years.
Yeah, I would like to tell you, see, basically, it's very important to connect with the students. So I always tell my teachers when they come, if you are coming here to do a job, please find some other place. If you are coming here to teach, then you are welcome. So the difference between a job and being a teacher is like, okay, I am working, I am getting paid. That's the relationship. Whatever happens to student is not my problem. But if you are going to come as a teacher, you are interested in the growth of your student. That's very, very important. And that helps the student to connect with you, bond with you, and listen to you. And you become an inspiration for him. Your measure of what you call as connecting with the student is more important to see how many students surround you out of your classroom and talk to you after the class is over. That's always the best measure of a good teacher. As soon as your class is over and you are walking out, how many students rush out to come and talk to you something and want to either clarify a question or get some guidance or ask you time to move forward? It is very important. I know there are challenges. We always face challenges. We have faced challenges when we were young. It may be relating to our jobs, it may be relating to our pay and all that. But if we keep that as our focus, then automatically we lose our path somewhere. So let's keep our focus on the students. Students will be our ambassadors. So I think we have seen this several times in movies. It's not only in movie that happens, even in real life it happens. So it's very important. And when the students come in the first year, particularly into the pharmacy program, they come into the mind that they have lost something and then join pharmacy. Either they didn't get the medicine or they didn't get the engineering or they wanted to do something and they didn't have their choice. And pharmacy was not their first choice to come. So we have to make them believe that it is not the course which you have taken that determines your success, but what you want to become determines the success. That's what I talk to all the first year students I try to meet. Even now, because of this technology we are able to do, whether it's a medical student or whether it is a dental student, I tell them, okay, we'll give you a degree at the 4-year or 5-year you're joining. That's different. But what is that you want to become in life? How can we help you to become that? And that drives the students to get connected and focus. There will be 10-15% bad eggs in every system. But we should, I will not say you ignore them, but you should not let them influence the good eggs. So that's the only way is keep the good people engaged with you so they don't get distracted by the other 15%. So either they will ignore those 15% over a period of time. And the next point which you can show is show them the success stories in your own organization. Like, look at this guy. He was my student. Now he is there as a vice president of this company. Look at this guy. He is my student. And now he is the deputy drug controller of India. Like, these are the things which students like to connect. And they say, I want to become like this. And I keep telling to all my teachers also that if you want to become the president of Pharmacy Council of India, your work starts now. You try to think, how can I become? What is the way to become? What are the qualities I have to imbibe? How can I become one day and be there in that position? Your time starts now for that. So you have to have that vision and feel and bring the change which you are looking at. I think it's possible.
Right, right. Very rightly said. So like I said initially, you are the truest vision of what you dreamt for yourself, you've actually achieved. And I think those grand visions is what we also need to keep for ourselves individually. Also, sir, there have been recent developments of late through CBSE, like they have introduced in class 9 to 12 certain subjects in computer science like artificial intelligence or Python or data science, for some careers which the students can take up after class 12. But they are not though a part of the core subjects when they study from 9th to 12th, but on elective levels, some students have. Sir, can't we have, and it is echoed by a lot of people, can't we have similar subjects, or maybe one chapter at least, or a couple of chapters introduced maybe in class 11 for science students, maybe something on drug discovery, or something on medicinal chemistry, or some pharmacopoeias or pharmacy practice, so that the students at least get to know what pharmacy is about, so that I feel that we can get a better lot of students from science than what we colleges usually, like private colleges like ours, or most of the colleges. So we don't get the premium quality of science students, because I think they're not aware of how beautiful this career in pharmacy is. So can't we have a proposal like that?
Thank you for that wonderful suggestion. What I will do is immediately, right on Monday, day after tomorrow, I will ask Archana to write to CBSE, asking them, showing them how vaccine development has changed the world, and how the pharma fraternity is able to work around and do it, and try to bring a chapter in the CBSE curriculum in science about how vaccine, medicines, and healthcare plays an important role. I think I will do it right on Monday. It will go out to CBSE. One letter will go, and let's hope it will be. I'll write even to the Honorable Minister to bring about this inclusion. I think it's a very good suggestion. Thank you for bringing it across.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for taking it up, so promptly, because my son is doing computer science. So personally, it came because he's been doing sessions on AI, and I feel I wish he was studying pharmacy. Why brilliant students don't take up pharmacy, because
Just
they
to
don't
tell,
know.
both my daughters are doing pharmacy.
Wonderful,
So,
wonderful. That's
so,
really nice. Yeah.
mm.
So there is, one thing that I always, want to ask the leaders, and I ask also sometimes on our fireside chats, is what is that one thing that continues to inspire you? Because I've been following you, and I see that you do one thing after the other and something. So what is that one thing that really inspires you even still?
See, basically what happens is when I interact with the students and young teachers like all of you here, I see that, they all have that aspiration and look in their eyes. Is there something which we can do to help them to move forward in their journey? See, what they look at a successful person, not that I'm declaring myself as a successful person, but like a young cricketer will always look at Sachin or Dhoni to tell how he should do his cricket skills and how he can become a national player. So always this is there in the mind of young people. And I feel that if I have learned something, it is my duty to share with the generation that is there. That's the only thing which I can leave behind. So I think the more I try to motivate people and more feel that even by 1% of my being in touch with them did influence a decision they wanted to take or change in the change they wanted to in career, and they come up and say, I think that gives me the energy back to go back and do again and again the same thing. And quite often what happens is when I go in airports and meet, I find my students walking up to me and telling, I was your batch student, sir. Today I'm sitting as a director of GSK. I'm sitting as vice president of CIPLA. So we feel very happy to see them. And we keep getting so many mails also acknowledging that on Facebook or whether it is Twitter, they keep acknowledging that, oh, we thank you, we got such a good education, we are able to move forward. This inspires me back again to do more. If we can bring about a change in one person's life, I think we should try to bring in many more people. I think that's the greatest satisfaction teacher has, when a student walks up to you and says that you helped him change or make his life.
So it is in giving that you receive.
Yes.
So you actually give out, and the same comes back to you as inspiration for doing more and more. I think wonderfully said. And since the entire session has been more so on leadership and to be a good teacher rather than pharmacy oriented. So lastly, my question is, what has been the secret of gaining so much affection from all over the world as a leader? I see that you're a very popular leader. So, but not all leaders get so much affection from all kind of masses. So what is the one secret which we can tell to the world today?
See, I have no expectations. As simple as that. I have got no expectations from anybody with whom I have interacted with. Let us say somebody, it may be coincidental that I have helped somebody, or it might have been making an influence on a person to take it. See, what happens is then when leaders start expecting acknowledgement, and leaders start expecting gratitude. Students look, people start looking at rewards for the good thing they have done. Then it is no longer a love or affection or something you are giving. It's just only a exchange, or it's just a barter. You give me, I give you. That type of relationship is there. So I feel the greatest thing which I have tried to build myself is to do what you want to do, but don't do it for the sake that, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get appreciation from others, or I'm going to get this award, I'm going to get this recognition. So then what happens is your focus gets diverted into the things. I do it just for my happiness. I enjoy talking to you this afternoon for 1 hour. So that is the happiness I have, and I am doing it. It is simple. After that, I wouldn't even remember what we did, and maybe we meet across also, and you'll say, sir, you gave a good talk. I'll say, oh yeah, when was it? And that's the way, because I have done my duty today, and it's over there. I have no expectations that I should be acknowledged, I should be seen. I think this is one thing which has always helped me to get the love and affection which we have from all of you. I am really grateful and humbled by the process. And with this always comes more responsibility to me, and also the fear that I should not lose this affection. I should not lose this respect which I have from all of you. So for that, I have tried to be more cautious that I should not do anything to hurt anybody's feelings. So this is how I am, and that's what I am.
Definitely. Thanks so much, because I don't think you can ever go wrong on this platform, at least. And I totally understand that when we don't chase happiness, when we don't chase affection, when we are not chasing awards and rewards, then they come in abundance to us. So there are two quick questions from two of our faculty as well. Dr. Shilpa, if you would like to ask.
Yeah, a very, very good afternoon, sir. I'm Dr. Shilpa from the Department of Pharmacy, Lloyd Institute. Sir, I just wanted to know, when we talk about the global level of pharmacy profession, why are the community pharmacists in India lagging behind than countries like US and all?
Thank you, Shilpa, for that. See, again, what we look at is, we cannot compare countries or the profession at different countries. Like, even if you look at Africa versus India, if you want to look at it, you may find Africa is further lagging behind. They may have professionally qualified people to handle it, but they'll be lagging behind in the services or access to the materials they want. They'll be lagging. So in India, what happened was community pharmacy typically took a role or backseat in the as we started our profession after the independence. It was not really the thrust, or it was not really the face of the profession. Whereas in Western world, community pharmacy and hospital pharmacy was the face of the profession, and the industry was the backside. Here, the industry has become the front or the face of the profession, and community and hospital pharmacists were in the back. Now the change has come, that from product to patient is what the focus is now all about. And even today morning, when the whole team from WHO and the government of India had come for the vaccination program, there was a crash cart kept there in the vaccination area with all the that fibrillator and other things, so that in case if there is a reaction, how to manage it, and medications were present to give the treatment. So immediately the question asked by the deputy director who had come was, who is the person who is going to handle the medicines? Then we told him, here is a clinical pharmacist who is going to handle. Oh, they say, oh, you have a clinical pharmacist. That's good. Many hospitals don't have a clinical pharmacist to do it. So I think this is the way we have to project and move forward, show our importance and the role which we can play in the healthcare delivery. I think surely the world will accept, and the change which we are expecting will happen. And that is what we are hoping to do by bringing all these practice-based programs and awareness. We are trying to bring this change across here.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So myself, Dr. Chitra Gupta from the Host Institute. Good afternoon. And I would first like to congratulate PCI on introducing the course on pharmacy practice school in the new curriculum. But surely I would like you to address this issue, that as to how to deal with this subject to achieve the expected outcomes.
Yeah. Thank you again, Dr. Chitra. In fact, this question was raised a few months ago, and we did have what you call as a webinar arranged from PCI. We can repeat that if you all feel it will be valuable, means I can repeat that. The idea of practice school, which we felt, was that the student should know end to end of a process, which he has to, which he would normally see in an industry, like if he sees. Like if we are talking about a formulation of a, say, development of a tablet. So he should know from raw material to the packing, what are the things to go through. And we expect that to be trained to the students from end to end. The student sees from right from taking the quality control of raw material, taking it to granulation, then punching the tablet, then quality control of the tablet, and then going for the packaging. And all these things, he gets a whole idea in the process. This is what we mean by a practice school. The same thing can be even in the pharmacy practice area also. Like if he is there right from the prescription given by the physician to the counseling of the patient and following up of the adverse reaction if it is there. So he should understand the whole concept which is associated with that. So this is what we intend by pharmacy practice. So we can surely, that video is also available on the website, I mean, in the YouTube, it is there. If you look at that, but anyway, we will try to have one more webinar. It was a very good session. In fact, I gave a difference between what do we mean by your classroom teaching, industrial training, and practice school, how the things are different. And it was nicely accepted. So maybe I will again be giving that. I will work with you all, no problem.
Sir, one thing more. Is it feasible without industry involvement? Is the effectiveness of this practice school?
See, why we brought this practice school concept is that not all institutions may have the capability to tie up with an industry and send the students to industry for training. So that is why this practice school became a sort of a backup plan for the institutions to carry out these activities. If you have an industry tie-up and do it with the industry, it is good. But if it is not possible, then at least in the institution, the student should know how to go about the whole process, because when he goes to an industry for an interview, he should understand what does he mean by in-process quality control, what does he mean by what you call as the packaging damage which has happened. He should know all those things, and unless he is not going to see it, whatever theory you may teach him, it does not register with him in the process. So it is very important to gain this type of practice school experience in a specific domain where you would like to look at a career for yourself. And just to add on industry experience, right now, we are working, the Pharmacy Council of India has working with the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, which is an alliance of 25 top companies of our country, like, the likes of Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, and all those big companies, Zydus, Sun, all these are the 25 companies. We are working with them, and we are going to shortly introduce what we call as the faculty industry training program. We call it as CBIT. We call it that. I don't remember the exact thing. So in that, we are going to invite applications from faculty to apply, and you can apply directly to PCI. In that, what we will do is we'll give a subsistence allowance of 50,000 rupees to the teacher. And he'll be given a list of industries where he can be wanting to go and spend 1 month there. So the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance itself is going to give it the facility. Let us say the companies like Abbott, Zydus, Dr. Reddy's, Sun, all have committed that they will take these 2 teachers, 3 teachers in their industry and train them for 1 month. And why we are giving this 50,000, even though the institution may depute, there may be other costs for the teacher to incur, like maybe it's travel, or maybe living or taking an apartment and living somewhere there. So costs are there. We didn't want the cost to be a determinant to them. So we are going to give this, and this will be rolled out maybe in a week or 10 days time. Keep watching the PCI website, and you can apply. And we are going to give to 100 teachers, but we have set aside 3 crores for this particular project from PCI. So first phase is this. So first 100, the next 100. So we'll keep sending out like this. We want the teachers to have real-time experience in industry. So when you come back to the classroom, you'll be able to share all that. And second thing is you'll be building industry relationship also. You'll be bringing an interaction with the industry, and you'll bring them for placement. You may bring them for consultancy. You may build them for joint projects. All this is possible because you would have connected with one mentor in the industry where you'll be working. So this is a new approach which we are looking at. And we are talking also with the Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. Can they take students for 1 semester into the industry itself? So, but the question is, how do we accommodate so many lakhs of students in the industry? So that's where we are working at. What is the mechanism to move forward? But we want to say strongly that our curriculum is going to shift before the academic year 2021-22 starts to strongly employment embedded curriculum would be there. So that is the way we are looking at, and we'll be working towards that.
That's very great, sir. Very nice approaches and very good steps being taken by PCI. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Chitra ma'am, for asking this. And thank you very much, sir, for detailing about this beautiful initiative by PCI. In fact, on similar lines, what President sir also apprised you earlier, that maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, that's the FDP that we have been doing in our campus. We really promote our faculty to go for 3 to 4 weeks to an industry. But the only problem was the industry wasn't very welcoming enough. But I think once this initiative comes from the PCI itself by forming this pharmaceutical alliance, we will be more welcomed into the industry. So thanks for taking that, and congratulations for this initiative as well.
Thank you.
And believe you me, sir, these have been the remarkable 70 minutes as you shared your wisdom with us, sir. I didn't even realize that we crossed 45 minutes. We have taken enough time. We understand that you're occupied with more than one task, even on weekends. But you've been kind enough, you've been considerate enough to accepted our invite to spend this more than 1 hour online session with us. And my favorite line from The Seat of Soul is when we align our thoughts, emotions, and actions with the highest part of ourselves, we are filled with enthusiasm, purpose, and meaning. And I always believe in this. When we fulfill our purpose with meaning, it gives us that electrifying juice and makes people stand in wonder as to how we did it, who we are, and what we are ourselves. We are in charge of our lives, and we decide what we want to do with it. Because if we don't take charge, then somebody else will. So today we got an insight into what made this visionary who he is and what continues to inspire him. Sir, you've been an epitome of good leadership. I have so much more to learn from you. Actually, thank you from the bottom of our heart for an awe-inspiring session. Thanks for being such a wonderful person that you are. I keep a gratitude journal to pen down daily things, what I'm thankful for that day. And today, I know I'm sorted. I know what I'm grateful for today and what I'm going to write down in my journal. So much has been said, but there's so much more to be heard. And we hope that we'd have many more opportunities to interact with you. Thank you so much. Please continue to bless us. Please continue to stay in touch. And thank you very, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manoharji. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Be honored, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, once again. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Manohar, sir. Thanks a lot. Well, moving ahead, I would now request our delegates to share their experience and feedback of this FTP.